Football at 4 powered by Inside the Birds. Andrew DiCecco, 97.3 ESPN.com, InsideTheBirds.com. A lot of Eagles, NFL. The NFL talking about mini camps possibly coming back. We'll get into all this and more during Football at 4 today with Andrew DiCecco as he joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. And one guy who was interesting over the weekend. Now, bros, did you see Reagor fire back at Skip Bayless this weekend?
I did. He actually pinned the tweet to his profile.
At the top of the Twitter page. Just a subtle little jab back at him. Now, Bayless went off basically saying that he was mocking the pick because no mock drafts had Reagor going that high, and that's why he was kind of mocking it. And Reagor basically, somebody had said, hey, Bayless is an idiot, and Reagor just kind of put the okay sign up over Bayless, pinned it to the top of his page, and then Reagor's mother got involved. You see this?
Oh, I did not see the mother.
Oh, yeah. She got involved. So apparently Reagor has a history of, people calling him out and then him kind of saying, all right, I got you.
A little MJ mentality.
Yeah, did you hear MJ? Apparently there's audio of him saying that he did not want to play with Isaiah after he said he never said that.
Yeah, that was actually in the headlines, but we never got to it. But, yeah, that's wild stuff, although not shocking at all.
Man, MJ's really taking a beating with his
Listen, it just defends my thought process on the whole MJ thing. The obsession is real.
All right, let's bring Andrew DiCecco in. Football at 4, powered by InsideTheBirds.com, here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Andrew, what's going on, man? How was your weekend?
Oh, it was great, man. It was good to kind of enjoy some nice weather for a change and, kind of relax a little bit. How about you guys?
I know. I got a text message from Andrew on Saturday asking me for an update on my IPAs, and I just started firing pictures back at him. He couldn't keep up with them.
Well, I was in the same boat because you just kept sending them too, and I
was coming at you with 7 different types of smoke. Yeah. No, it was good. It was good, but a lot happened over the weekend. A lot centering around Jalen Reagor, and I know that was a topic of you and Moshe over at InsideTheBirds.com. I saw Pro Football Focus ranked the rookie wide receiver situations for this season and had him 9th on the list of 10th in terms of the best situations. But I'm interested to hear from you. What kind of role do you see for Jalen in his rookie season?
Well, if you can remember back to 2008 when Deshaun Jackson was kind of thrust to a starting role when Kevin Curtis had that sports hernia that he was dealing with, I can kind of foresee Jalen Reagor having a similar type of impact on the offense. Obviously, Deshaun had 62 catches for 912 yards. So I don't necessarily think that Jalen's going to have that kind of impact. But, Jeff and I did that piece today where we kind of predicted his output for his rookie season. I had him at 55 catches for 750 yards and 5 touchdowns. I think that'd be a tremendous rookie season given the shortened off season and kind of how tough it is as a wide receiver to get behind, to kind of get the ball rolling as far as learning the offense.
Now, do you look at him as with Jackson in front of him kind of curbing him, or do you think they will use them together and kind of complement each other?
Well, the cool thing about Jalen Reagor is that I think that they can complement each other. I think he can complement what Deshaun Jackson brings to the offense. And with Jalen Reagor, he doesn't necessarily he doesn't line up in one spot and that's it. He can move around formations. I think the Eagles can be very creative. You heard Jeff on Inside the Birds on the podcast that came out yesterday. They're going to find a lot of creative ways to get him the football. So I think you're going to see him. They're going to take advantage of his ability to create yards after the catch on screen passes, jet sweeps, obviously the vertical element that he brings to the table. And then I think, you'll see him work all three, sections of the field, which he's proven to do very well at TCU. So I think they're not going to have a hard time getting him the football.
On InsideTheBirds.com, you compared him to Freddie Mitchell. Tell us more about what you see in him that reminds you of Freddie.
Is that a good thing?
Well, I didn't compare him to Freddie Mitchell. When I was looking at the type of seasons that Eagles receivers that were drafted high in the past, I said Freddie Mitchell had 21 receptions. Nelson Aguilar had 23 receptions in 2015. But then I went on to say that I think that Jalen Reagor is going to, completely dismantle, that notion that rookie receivers can't make an impact in the Eagles offense. And I compared him to Deshaun Jackson the season that he had in 2008. And the fact that I feel so strongly about that is because you can find so many different ways to get him the football. He's an explosive talent. I think the Eagles are going to take full advantage of that.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. Reagor's another guy where I think that they use him all over the field, and Jackson kind of stays in one spot. Like, they can move him. He can play on the outside, be in the slot, do the jet sweeps. It feels like, I don't want to call him a gimmick player, but that he will have much more manufactured ways to get him the ball. That's why I feel, this ranking of him number 9 in situations isn't really fair. I feel that he's going to have a much bigger role than some people are giving him credit for.
Yeah, absolutely. 9th is way off base from where I have him. I think he can be a top 3 rookie wide receiver in this upcoming season. And if you kind of look at what Deebo Samuel did last season for the San Francisco 49ers and the myriad of ways that Kyle Shanahan got him the football, I think you could see something similar with the Eagles offense and how they use Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, and another thing, too, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, I feel that you're a little bit higher on his second year. Now, I agree. I'm not writing him off. I feel that he has an intriguing skill set that could complement both Jackson and Reagor.
Yeah, I think one of the common misconceptions about that fans sometimes have on players is they're quick to write them off after one season, and you have to really take into account everything that player, that rookies in general, young players, that they're up against. And a lot of times, it takes them a little longer to kind of grasp a playbook. Maybe they didn't run an expansive route tree in college. Maybe they were dealing with injuries, like in JJ's case. JJ said he went into each week not really knowing what his role was going to be. So I think that coaching can sometimes play a part in it. Obviously, the player needs to take into account, needs to be accountable and, catch the football when you're given these opportunities. But I think that, not just at wide receiver in JJ's case, I think young players in general are kind of written off sometimes a bit too quickly before they really have a chance to kind of flourish.
What can we expect from Greg Ward in the slot? Is there really any threat at that specific wide receiver position?
Well, Greg Ward's, like you said, he's primarily a slot receiver. Anybody who's kept up with my work since 2017 knows that I've been a big advocate of Greg Ward in his game. I like what he brings to the table. The thing with Greg Ward is that he's not exceptionally fast. He's more of an elusive guy. He's not a vertical threat at all. He's more of a horizontal threat. And you saw him kind of build for the consecutive years on the practice squad. He would come so close to making the roster, and he would be on the practice squad, and he would give the first team offense good looks during the week, and you kind of saw his ability to absorb everything that was thrown at him over the past couple of seasons. Because when he went out there, he was fully prepared to go out there and execute what the offense, what his responsibilities were. I think that now that you have so many different components to the offense, Greg Ward gets bumped down significantly down the receiving depth chart, so he'll probably be the 5th or 6th guy. But having a guy who is your leading receiver on a playoff team as your 6th receiver, you're in a much better spot, obviously.
Yeah, Ward, I find it's like he's an interesting fill for this team, because it's almost like he did such a good job in that slot that you're almost like, well, you're not going to move him out of there, but if you're having Reagor and let's say JJ, is a 2nd-round pick and they like what they see from him and then he's out there, obviously Jackson would be out there. The interesting thing would be, do you go more 12 personnel and use Goddard, and does that hurt Ward? How big of a role can Ward have if JJ actually comes around? That, to me, is an interesting something to watch during training camp, is if JJ does exceed expectations, whose time does that hurt more, Ward or Goddard?
Well, certainly it's not going to hurt Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert has the potential to be a top 10 tight end, and working with Zach Ertz, they pretty much have the top 2 tight end tandem in the NFL. So I think it's going to hurt Greg Ward, who, let's face it, he's going to have an uphill climb to make the roster. And if he does, he's going to be, the 6th receiver on the team and possibly inactive on game day. He's really going to have to show that he can, kind of prove his worth on special teams this year, because they've added competition to the receiver position. So he's certainly going to have to scratch and claw his way onto the roster once again.
Is it crazy to say right now, at least, and if everyone stays healthy, that there's almost too many weapons on offense? I mean, right now we are trying to dissect how to get everybody on the field.
Well, I don't think you can have there's no such thing as having too many offensive weapons, Hunter. You look at last season, and it's kind of the tale of two seasons, really. They had literally no weapons last season, save Miles Sanders and the tight ends. But now they have a lot of weapons, which is great because now Carson Wentz kind of gets to see what he's able to do. He threw 27 touchdown passes with minimal weapons last season, and like I was saying on the show last week, 38 to 40 touchdowns suddenly becomes a realistic possibility with the weapons that he has at his disposal.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4, powered by InsideTheBirds.com. Let's look at, the running back spot here. You wrote on our website, 973ESPN.com, about the running back spot. There's been a lot of reporting about a veteran running back. Carlos Hyde signed last week with Seattle. Over the weekend, Devonta Freeman, who had an offer by the Seahawks, he turned it down. 1 year, $4 million was the report. I don't see any way the Eagles spend. Adam Kaplan has said they don't want to spend more than the veteran minimum. Do you anticipate that the Eagles will end up going to camp with the running backs that they have, or do you think ultimately there will be a veteran here?
Well, like Jeff and Adam have said, there's names, and then the Eagles have their number. And if the player's not willing to meet that number, they're certainly not going to go out of their budget and go and get one just for the sake of adding one. So the way I see it right now, I think they're going to go into training camp with who they have on the roster. And I really do feel like obviously they're really high on their undrafted free agent class. They brought in Elijah Holyfield at the end of last season, so he's had at least 5 months to understand the playbook and kind of really understand what the Eagles are looking to do. Mike Warren's a guy that I spoke about last week. Mike Warren, he left college a year early. He had 3,000 yards of production over the past 2 seasons. And he was going into this season, he would have been one of the best top running backs in the country. So I think they got a great value there with him. And he has a lot of untapped potential because he had 51 receptions in his career at Cincinnati. And he started out his career as a return specialist. So he's a little bit more than a bruising running back that his size would indicate. He's got very nifty feet, good vision, and that contact balance that I was talking about. He stays on his feet and he makes guys pay as he makes his way through contact. So I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be heavily he'll be in contention for a roster spot.
It seems very possible now that there might be camps in June. So how do you feel like this could impact the entire league with undrafted players and even more?
Well, it's great news for everyone, but especially undrafted players, where every opportunity, kind of is magnified. You don't get you don't get a lot of opportunities as a young player, so you have to really make the most of them. So I think that they're the biggest winners from this whole thing. You saw the scheduled dates, the hypothetical dates being June 15th, which I feel is a long shot, but June 27th suddenly becomes a realistic possibility. So I guess they're gonna, they're trying to find. They're trying to find an actual date, but the coronavirus are restricted by there's restrictions with the coronavirus in various states, so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, PA being one of them, where the Eagles are one of the teams that aren't allowed. I guess with Jersey opening up today, do we anticipate seeing the Eagles do something that a lot of these teams are starting to do? In Tampa, Tom Brady's out. Do we see the Eagles finding a high school field in Jersey somewhere and starting to chuck it around a little bit to get your guys like John Hightower, Quez Watkins, Mike Warren out on the field?
I think that's certainly going to that becomes a realistic possibility now. And I think, maybe like after another week or so of these virtual meetings, I think you're going to start to see more and more teams do that. And, as you see, that Carson Wentz has historically been a player who likes to kind of get his offensive guys, get them all on the same page, get that work in. And I think that's something that you could realistically see in the next couple of weeks here.
Brandon Graham has said he thinks that the Eagles have an advantage over the rest of the NFC, and that's what the whole fact of their coaching staff is coming back. They have the full coaching staff. They have that, which no other team in the NFC East really has. But Doug Peterson did say last week, he did admit, he texted Sal Paolantonio, Andrew, that it's really hard to build team chemistry virtually, like over a computer, that it's hard to do. And I guess the one question is, one of the things the Eagles did this all season was they tried to add a lot of speed with skill position players. So even with the same coaching staff, I do still see that it's difficult to try to incorporate all these young receivers to this offense if they can't get grass time, which is the word that Peterson used. Do you think that is something that is not being taken under consideration when people talk about, well, they have the same coaching staff, but yeah, they brought in 5 new receivers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a big problem across the league, not just with the Eagles. And if you listened to the Doug Peterson's press conference last week, where I guess the best way that he could really kind of get a gauge of where his players are at is he would tell his position coaches to kind of get feedback from each player, a few sentences, as to where they're at in their development and, report back to them. And that's really all you can do, virtually. There's always so much you can do. But I think that, not having that grass time significantly impacts, you're going to you'll probably see some teams, probably all the teams are going to start out the season pretty rusty, not having that extra, classroom time and grass time, like you said.
The Eagles definitely have an advantage with the coaching staff, but how do you think the whole Dak Prescott contract conversation and the drama surrounding that can affect the Eagles' chance of winning the NFC East?
Well, I think it can only help. It can only enhance their chances of winning the NFC East. Obviously, I do feel that the Eagles are a superior team on paper. That obviously has to play out on the field. But that's anytime you have any kind of like this distraction like that going on amongst a division rival, I think that certainly plays in favor to the Eagles. And you have a lot of people that are in Dak's camp that feels he should be getting paid for what he's done so far in his career, and then you also have some that still want him to prove a little bit more out there. So I think that when you kind of have that potential friction amongst a division rival, I think that can only help the Eagles.
And you wonder how much of an impact, you just mentioned friction and stuff on the division rival, how much of an impact is this Dak thing going to have? I mean, there is no mini camps or anything going on right now, but if this starts to linger, obviously that might change a little bit. But I mean, how much of an impact do you think Dak not being signed right now has on the season?
Well, I think it has a big impact on the Cowboys because right now, there aren't any workouts. Everything's done virtually. So that's really all they have to talk about. That's all that anyone, in there and around the team is talking about. So I think that, as that kind of dark cloud looms, I think that you'll really see I think it's going to negatively impact the Cowboys from a distraction standpoint.
Dak is very interesting. I mean, what is your personal opinion on him as a quarterback? Do you think that he is worth the money to keep him satisfied in Dallas? Like, if you were writing the check, which way would you lean?
I'm not so sure that I'd be willing to spend, what he's asking for. Do I think he's a good quarterback? I do think he's a good quarterback. I think there's certain areas of his game there's certain aspects of his game that he does very well. Do I think he's better than, say, Carson Wentz? I don't. But I think it's closer than people actually give it credit for.
All right, Football 4 powered by Inside the Birds. Andrew DiCecco is with us here as we're looking some of the things that are happening with the Eagles to this offseason. And then, of course, the NFL, which, by the way, we talked about a little bit, but the restrictions on pro teams are now being lifted. So you're going to start seeing the possibility of a mini camp. So I guess the next question would be, is the anticipation just, covering the league and what we know, do we anticipate things kind of starting off training camp as normal, exhibition games kicking off in August without fault problems? Are we starting to feel better about that?
Well, I don't. There's still a lot of uncertainty. Obviously, Brown center J.C. Treader came out and said, he essentially said, to kind of,
By the way, he's the president of the NFLPA for the people who don't know who he is. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, he earlier this afternoon, he kind of said, our union has not agreed to any reopening plan, any reports coming back to work are hypothetical. So, I guess as you see new developments, then things become a little bit more clear. But as of right now, everything is kind of hypothetical and fluid.
Right, because the states, I guess you still have Pennsylvania, California as two that need to still kind of open up. Now, I guess those states those teams could essentially go to a neighboring state. Philly could come over to New Jersey and find a spot. California can, head over to a neighboring state. So it wouldn't be the biggest block, but it sounds as if, though, the NFL is saying, hey, we missed these mini camps. Let's make up for some lost time and get some June mini camps in here, which, I think if you start to see June mini camps, that might be the precursor for the next step, possibly being playing games in stadiums. Who knows how many fans are in there, but it sounds like the NFL wants as much normalcy as possible.
Yeah, that's kind of what I gathered as well, Mike. And like you said, California is going to be the biggest hurdle in kind of determining when they're going to ultimately hold these camps. And you saw two, tentative dates in June 15th, which I like I was saying, I think they're a far cry from that. But June 27th might be realistic for mini camps.
All right, and the NFL did say we're not putting any dates on a potential return. As you mentioned, J.C. Treader, they've not agreed to anything, but you definitely feel better, especially with the NBA and then the NHL. If they're out there doing some things, the NFL is certainly not going to want to be upstaged by anybody else. Stephen Ross, by the way, Andrew, as you know, the NFL owner for the Miami Dolphins, he said the NFL will definitely play. The only question is if we'll have fans. So that's the way the owners in the league are feeling at this point. So I guess it's starting, we're starting to get excited about the possibility of sports coming back. It's Football at 4. Powered by InsideTheBirds.com. Andrew DiCecco was with us on Tuesday. He'll be back on Friday. Tomorrow, Jeff Mosher is in, Adam Kaplan on Thursday, and he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Andrew, thanks, pal.
You bet, guys. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, he'll be back Friday, and good insight on Jalen Reagor, also the running backs situation at DiCecco NFL on Twitter. Give him a follow there.